Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the show. I'm Christy Lowe. I'm your host, and I'm always glad when we can spend some time together. So thanks for coming back and sharing some time with me this week. Last week we talked about the 3 questions we need to ask when we don't know what to do. And I realized after I recorded that episode that one of the things that I wish I had said was that a lot of times, whenever we're faced with a problem, we just don't know how to get off on the right foot in facing or dealing with a problem. And so I think that that's the one thing I wish I had said. So you know what? It's my podcast, and I can go back and add whatever I want to say. But if you haven't listened to that, go back, give it a listen, and just be reminded that it's about approaching the problem from the right perspective, and that being just sitting with the Lord first. I don't know about y'all, but there are so many times whenever I'm faced with a problem, and the first thing I do is I complain to my best friend, or I call my husband, or I text somebody, or I start sending sarcastic reels and memes to my friends on Instagram. So if you're the recipient of those late at night, sorry. I'm just kidding. Anyways, but we do things instead of just taking it to God and going, God, there it is. Take care of this. And so anyways, just know that he is so wants to be with us through all of the things that we're going through. And what a gracious God we serve, y'all. My guest today, his name is Jacob Robinson. He's a Houston guy, and he's actually my Texas Tech friends, y'all. He's an Aggie. So apparently, I am open to letting anybody come on the show. That should tell you something, because he is a Texas A&M Aggie through and through. And but he is a fantastic human, and he's got a story today, y'all, that just was so encouraging to me, and I think it's going to be encouraging to you too. In my early days when I first started this podcast, every story, every episode was someone's story, and so I've had the blessing and the opportunity of sharing this space sometimes with people who have been real thought leaders and people who are really doing some really incredible work in the public square. But I still love just having people on the show to tell me their stories, because I don't know about y'all, but stories sometimes just stir me up and teach me things. And, if you go back, when you read the Bible, I mean, Jesus taught in parables. He knows that we receive story often better than a lecture or any kind of 3 points in a poem. And so today I'm blessed to share this space with Jacob and his story of starting a theme park, which came from the most unlikeliest of circumstances. And it just is a beautiful, beautiful reminder of how God is alive and active and working in the midst of circumstances that we never could have imagined. And so I don't want to spoil anything for you. I just want to tell you that you are adored and you are loved. And I am so glad you're here with us today. And if you haven't gone to get subscribed to that newsletter that you hear me talk about every single week, go over to evenifpodcast.com. It's on about the middle of the homepage. Sign up, get your free Spotify music playlist, and then get in tune and in touch with everything going on here around the podcast. We've got some cool things coming this spring and this summer, and you're gonna want to know about it. So go get the newsletter. All right, friends, I think that's it. Let's just jump right into today's episode. Without further ado, here you go. Hey, Jacob, so glad that you are here. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this. It's an honor to be here today.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I'm glad you're here. I want it known for the record before we even begin that you are an Aggie and I
Yes.
am a Red Raider, but Jesus loves both of us.
Yes.
And so,
That is true. It's like I said, and I can say this because my brother-in-law went there and works there. It's better than being a Baylor Bear, right? And so if you had started the conversation that way, we might have had to postpone or something and pray about it. But my parents live in Waco. My brother-in-law is a Baylor Bear, and I've joked before, I feel like every boss I've ever had went to. I can't get away from the people, so they're everywhere. It's good to talk to a Red Raider.
That's funny.
Y'all stole Cliff Kingsbury from us, so for better or worse, you stole him from us. But that's okay.
Well, we didn't keep him that long. Yeah, but it's funny. My husband's boss is a Baylor Bear. Like, And my brother
Yeah.
went to Baylor. So like but they happen to be good people. So I think I'm pretty sure Jesus loves Baylor Bears too. So
That is true. That is true. I love my brother-in-law. So yeah, I'll put that
exactly.
on the record for him.
Well, I'm really excited about our conversation today. But before we jump in, tell the listeners just a little bit about yourself. How did you come to know Christ? Anything you want to share about your family? And I think you have a little podcast too. So tell us a little bit about
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah, so kind of all over the place, but we'll kind of just go back from the beginning. I was born in Alabama. I was raised all over the Southeast. My dad ran healthcare systems, and so I was born in Alabama, raised all over East Texas. I graduated high school in South Carolina, and then I went to Texas A&M. And then after my freshman year, my dad took a job in Waco, Texas. I went from being 16 hours away from home freshman year to being an hour and a half away from home sophomore year, which was a good change for everybody. But in one of those stops along the way, we lived in a small town in East Texas. When I was about 8 years old, I accepted Christ. And no crazy story there. In the Baptist church, we call them illusionists, not magicians. Came to our church and did a gospel presentation. And I remember him using the overhead projector. And yeah, way, way, way back in the day.
Showing your
And
age, sir.
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. The hairline doesn't do it that well. And walked down and said, I want to accept Jesus. And that was that, right? I grew up super great family, great godly parents. I still look up to both of them to today, a great relationship. I think I always say that's when I accepted Christ. I came to really know Christ was when I was in high school, my senior year. Going into my senior year, one of our best friends got diagnosed with cancer, and she struggled with cancer for 6 months and then passed away in November of our senior year. And so when you're 18 years old and you're holding your friend's hand when they take their last breath, you watch that progression from having lunch in the cafeteria to 6 months later, them passing away on their couch. I told somebody earlier this week, I listened to a book, and I can't recall which book it was at this point, which drives me crazy. But it said, you cease to being a kid the first big traumatic event in your life. And I've thought about that a lot. It's kind of like these aha moments. I think if people know me, they joke, I'm the old man, I'm the serious one, no fun one, that kind of stuff. And I think it's probably because I entered college on the heels of her passing away, and just not that I thought any better. I just thought about life differently, right? And I was probably still struggling with that mentally and wrestling with that. But I think that, to answer your question, that time is when I really came to know the Lord, right? And really understand what it was like to know Jesus and follow him, trust him, and at the same time, not understand him. And that story has continued to play out as we'll talk about the rest of my life. But that's how I came to know the Lord. Like I said, I graduated A&M. I met my wife there. Melissa, we started dating freshman year in college. We dated all the way through. She was not smart enough to let me go, and so I was smart enough to lock it down.
Put a ring on
And
that.
we got married. That's right. That's right. We got married right after school. Moved here to Houston. She's born and raised here in Houston, and we've been here ever since. We've lived kind of in town, and now we live right outside Houston. My in-laws live down the road, and we're just super blessed. We've got 3 kids now as of 2 months ago. So I'm tired. We do. We do. We do. We've got 8-year-old, 3-year-old, and 2-year-old. And it's fun chaos at the house right now.
Wow.
So that's a little bit of how we got here today.
Whoa. Okay. Yeah, so you have your eyes open, which I remember those days, but mine are almost
Yes.
grown and flown now. So I told you before we started recording, we are like 18 months away from being empty nesters, although we're not counting down. So hey, you have a ways to go, my friend. But
Yes.
tell me about you. A couple of years ago, your son Pierce got sick, and that's kind of where today's conversation begins. Tell us a little bit about what happened there, and I understand we're talking about children here, so and I always tell my listeners don't say anything more than what you feel comfortable, of course, with. But what can you share about what happened there?
Yeah. Yeah. So Pierce is my 8-year-old son. He's my oldest. He was born in May 2015. No issues. Born completely fine. Progressed completely fine. Walking, talking, running around, joking around with me in the backyard, and learning how to swing a baseball bat, and all the things you should do. And life was good. Life was good. I had just started a company we're still running today. We were figuring everything out, and we had just bought a house, and yeah, life was good. And in February of 2017, so he was almost 2 years old, he got sick on a Wednesday, and just common kid, just sick, right? And give him some Tylenol, and yeah, go to bed, and they'll wake up tomorrow and act like nothing ever happened. And he got a little bit better on a Thursday, and then Friday he got worse again. We took him into the doctor. They said, "Hey, listen, just is what it is," and gave him some medicine, and we just thought that'd be fine. And we put him to bed that night, February 3rd, and didn't know at that point that'd be the last time we talked to him. And we woke him up on February 4th, unconscious in his crib. He was sleeping just really late, and it was one of those where like later than normal, not like later as a parent where you're like, yeah, they slept a little bit later. It was one of those where like, nah, something's not right. And so my wife went in there. I tell people, I don't think I'll ever forget the scream that I heard coming from his room. She carried him out, ran him out. He was limp as all get out. We threw him in the car. We were both still in our pajamas. I didn't have shoes on. And we drove him to the ER. It's kind of like those standalone ERs that are right outside most neighborhoods nowadays. Yeah. Took him in, and I remember carrying him in, just screaming, "Keep him alive, keep him alive!" And these poor doctors, it's Saturday morning. They were not expecting. They were expecting maybe like a broken arm, coming in, not a kid completely unconscious. And frankly, they're not really set up for that type of deal. And they just started pumping him full of just anything, right? Just started pumping him full of drugs, and they called the ambulance. Ambulance finally came. They took us to, like I said, we live in Houston, so Texas Children's. They have multiple satellite campuses. So they took us to the West Campus out here near our house, and they took us in. They rushed us to the back to the trauma room. At this point, he still was essentially unconscious. They did a CT scan. I went back there with the doctor, and I'll never forget him looking at the computer and going, "We need to get him down to the med center now." And so they called a special division they have is called the Kangaroo Crew. And the Kangaroo Crew is essentially their pediatric ICU transport team. So I always tell people, if you're if you're a doctor, you work in ambulance, like you're like in the Navy, right? Like you're awesome and you take care of and you protect us. If you're in the Kangaroo Crew, you're on the Navy SEALs, right? And frankly, you're probably SEAL team. These are individuals that fly all around the world to get kids and bring them back to Houston and keep them alive. Sure. So they came and got Pierce. And what I didn't know at the time was Melissa got in the ambulance with him. I hopped in our car behind because they couldn't have two adults in there. What I didn't know at the time is that the head ICU nurse on the transport team looked at the other one and said, "Hey, listen, that dad is not going to see his kid alive ever again." He's like, "I don't think we're going to make it to the med center," which is frankly a 20-minute drive, right? And they said, "I just don't think he's not going to make it." We get to the med center and they rush him in. Finally, we have a doctor come in and say, "Hey, listen, we think we know what's going on. We think he's contracted bacterial meningitis. We're going to run some more tests and see if we can stabilize him, but it's not good." Came in a little bit later, said, "Hey, listen, out of all the strands of bacterial meningitis you can get, he's probably got the worst. And if he can make it the next 24 or 48 hours, maybe there's some hope on the other side." And so it was touch and go. And to kind of take the long story shorter, that was Saturday, Sunday. It was actually when the Super Bowl was here in Houston. I'll never forget that. It was crazy in town. Monday, he got a little bit better. So we're like, all right, feeling good about it. Take us to a step-down unit on Tuesday morning. They said, "Hey, listen, you're going to be here 14 days. We were like, 14 days? What do we do for 14 days? Like, my heavens. But okay, fine. He's alive, right? He's alive and he's going to be good. So we can do 14 days.
Sure.
And that night, about 2 a.m., he started having seizures. And if you know anything about seizures, if you have a seizure that lasts more than 5 minutes, you typically sustain some type of brain damage with it. Yeah. Pierce seized for about 18 hours straight before they were able to put him into a coma. And so they took us back to the ICU, put him in a coma. He was in a coma 12 days. They said, "Hey, if we can pull him out of his coma, he's going to have a lot of brain damage." I remember they showed us his brain on a bunch of screen and said, "It's not going to be good. It's not going to be good at all." They said, "Hey, he's probably never going to walk again, talk again. He's going to have no emotional intelligence. Like he's essentially going to be a vegetable," is the best way, the most candid way of saying it. But we pulled him out of the coma. God did some crazy miracles. And we were in the hospital 75 days with him before we finally got to go home. So I'll take 14 at any time. But when we left, Pierce is now, he's deaf in both ears. He's nonverbal. I haven't heard him talk since that day. He has about 100 plus seizures a day still. He's in a wheelchair and he has about the mental capacity. If you try to put it on a scale, right, it's probably about a 6 month to a 1.5-year-old given the task. And so he's mentally and physically handicapped and has severe special needs. And he will live with me the rest of my life and my wife, and he is it's our honor to be his parents. But we were thrust into this special needs community that is so near and dear to our hearts, quite literally overnight. And it's been a whirlwind ever since, but we've learned a lot. But that's his story. That's how we got here today.
Wow. That kind of takes your breath away, my friend. The gravity of how life can shift just on a dime.
Yep.
Yeah. And I can only imagine, that was in what, 2015? No, 2017.
2017. Yep.
So you've been navigating life. Your life changes. You turns on a dime. You're facing a reality you never really thought you would face. I think we could spend all day talking about how that looks for somebody whenever they go through, because that's a grieving process.
Sure. Yep.
The beauty of this, however, is that you have the heart of a father, and that, sorry, I thought I would get through that without like getting a little choked up here. But when I heard about your story and kind of what had happened, all the first thing I saw, I was like, he has the heart of a father, because daddy's love. And after you come out on the other side of this, I don't mean to fast forward past the grieving
No.
that happened
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
But he inspired you, and he inspired you to build something and to do
Yeah.
something so that he could participate. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so tell us now. You've been thrust into the special needs community, and God puts on your heart this idea of Dig World. And I don't know if anybody has heard about Dig World, but I think it is the coolest thing, and I really want to go myself.
Yes. Yes.
So tell us the story of like what happened. Like how did this idea even come about?
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, we say this all the time. Pierce inspires 99% of what I do in my life at this point. And whether that's whether that's how I just think about life, or whether that's a community he's made me more aware of, or others. But I tell people all the time, I have two phases of my life. I have pre-Pierce getting sick and post-Pierce getting sick. And Jacob, post-Pierce getting sick is, I'm not going to be as dramatic and say it's radically different, but it is definitely different. It's different how I communicate with people. It's different how I think about work, the stress or not stress of work, how we think about our relationship with the Lord, and even here on earth, all those things. And so fast forward out of the hospital as we're finding this new rhythm. And Melissa and I, we look back at that time and we go, man, we were so naive. We didn't know anything about like where our life's at now. But I think that's God's protection, right? It's one day at a time. And it's like her and I often talk. We say sometimes when Satan's working on us, we'll get overwhelmed about the future. We'll say, what is this going to look like when he's 18? Like, how are we going to take care of him when he's 35? Like, how do you logistically do this? How do I pick him up out of the bathtub? How do I do all these kind of things? And then we're reminded, hey, listen, when he was 2, when he got sick, if you had told me I need to do this stuff for an 8-year-old, which he is today, I would have had no clue how to do it for an 8-year-old. But here we are as an 8-year-old, and we've got it down. It's because it's one day at a time, right? And that's how we've approached, or we're trying to approach life. So that's it. That's all. It's like I texted everybody the other day. It's almost like that's what the Lord says we should do, right? It's crazy. This notion of focus on one day at a time. It's mind-boggling that would be the case. So as we've done that, we became aware of a few things. One, there's a park like ours that already exists. It's up in New Jersey. But Pierce had always loved garbage trucks, dump trucks, construction equipment. Yeah. And what's funny about his brain injury is so before he got sick, the thing he would love to do on Saturday mornings is we would wait for the garbage men, and we'd wait for him outside. Yeah. A lot of things in his brain injury disappeared, right? A lot of the ability to do a lot of things. However, he loves those garbage men still. And he loves, it's like those things were so hardwired into his brain. His little YouTube video that he watches, still watches the same video today that he watched back then. We saw a doctor recently that saw us in the ICU. They're like, oh, still the same video. And I'm like, it's going to be that video when he's 55. And so that's how it's going to be.
You downloaded this video in case it gets pulled off YouTube.
Oh, we have it on like 17 different devices. Yes, on hard drives and everything. Yeah, that would be terrible.
I remember when our Cars DVD broke. My son was a Cars guy. Oh my gosh, we watched Cars. I have that whole movie memorized at this point. I remember the day it broke, and we went to Walmart that day and got another one because
right there. Yeah, you just changed plans, and yes,
it was like, hey, we're going to Walmart right now. So yeah, I get it. I get it.
That's right. And so I said, listen, I want to do a couple things. I want to accomplish a couple goals in this new venture that we started called Dig World. I wanted somewhere that Pierce could enjoy. I wanted somewhere where somebody like Pierce could work one day. And I wanted to create a place that brings families like ours together. And so our park is not a special needs park. However, we cater heavily to the special needs community. And so what is Dig World? Dig World is a construction theme park where adults and kids get to operate real construction equipment. And to the listeners out there, real construction equipment. I had a family friend come to the park this weekend. They go, oh, wait, it's a real skid steer? And I'm like, yes, people, I have been saying that. It is a real skid steer. We put a kid in there. We let them drive it. Yes, it's re-engineered. Yes, it's safe. Yes, we have controls on it, whatever. But it's a real machine. They're really in control of it. We put them on an excavator. They're really in charge of it. They dig dirt. They play games. They move objects around. They drive UTVs. And so we created this park with this idea of, man, could we really bring people and families together? And what fast forward now, what I love about what we've created is this is the easiest place for me to share the gospel to people is we get to hit them over the head with Jesus every day and they don't know it. And same with our staff. I get to love on our staff. But what we realized along the way was, I've got a 3-year-old daughter, and what we've realized about the special needs community is a lot of times the siblings are the forgotten kids, right? And it's not necessarily like we forget about you, but we don't get to necessarily go do a lot of things because of peers, right? Whether it be logistics or, like, for example, we're not going to go to a family movie. We're not going to sit in the movie theater, right? Because Pierce is loud and he won't sit there and he won't know what's going on. So we're not going to do that. Now, can I take Annie as a father-daughter date? Absolutely. And we do that. Sure. But we're not going to collectively go as a unit. So we don't do that. So we forget about those things, right? We were even talking the other day, like, I don't know if our family will ever have a beach vacation together. Trying to push a wheelchair on the beach, no, thank you. Doesn't sound fun to me. I know before people email me, I know there's beach chairs out there. I know that kind of stuff, but it just doesn't work. But that's okay. And so what we've realized is, man, we get an opportunity to bring people together and love on everybody. And so once a quarter, we shut the park down. And we were inspired by some of our friends, Hope Hills Ministry, where everybody at the park gets to come for free, as long as you have a kid with a disability. And the thought there is, I tell our staff every time we do a special needs night, yes, let's love on that kid with a disability. Let's love on. Let's make memories for these kids. Let's treat them normal. Let's put them on machines. Let's give them an opportunity that they don't ever get. But don't forget about the sibling too. Invest in them, love on them, show them a great time as well, because they're getting an opportunity that they don't necessarily always get. So we created a theme park. We built a theme park. I told my wife the other day, if I said, hey, when I met you as a freshman in college, if I had told you, hey, listen, I'm going to be a janitor and a theme park operator, are you in? And she said, I'd really have to think about it. And so we are on quite the journey God has put us on. I do not fit into any box with my friends. I'm always the outlier in the group as we pursue theme parks and water parks. So it's been an amazing experience. We opened the park March of 2022. We've been open a little over a year and a half. And man, that was a crazy God journey. We birthed this idea in 2019, thinking we were going to be open 6 months later. That's what we told people. We'd be open 6 months later. And we opened in March of 2022. So you can do the math on the months there. But it's just been a wild blessing. It's just an honor to be a part of it, really is what it is. So like my college friend and I were co-founders in it and opened it up. And we got a great team that runs it. And we're super blessed.
I love that. I think that's so cool. I think a lot of times we see the way God, sometimes I call them God interruption, the things that interrupt our lives, that change our path. But how many kids have been blessed because of Pierce? How many families have seen Jesus because of your faithfulness there? I think that's really cool. And I got to ask, how much does he enjoy it? Does he like to go?
Oh, he loves it. What's interesting about, again, one of the weird things about his brain injury is he has a crazy ability to know logos and brands. And so he's got his favorites, right? He's got the Chick-fil-A. He's got the Cane's chicken. He's got those. Kid. But he's a great kid. He's got his priorities straight. But whenever I wear like my work Dig World polo, it's got the icon on the chest of it. He will see it. He will grab it. He wants to pull it to him. The other day we pulled up to the park to walk our family friends around, and he's flapping, hooting and hollering. We put him in the park, put him in his wheelchair, and we kind of shut the gate. And that dude, he just wheels around by himself. He loves it. The food and beverage container that we have is called Pierce's Post, where we get to tell his story. And we try to point people to Jesus through that, but really letting people know that we are trying to bring good out of the ashes, right? And we're trying to tell Jesus' story when it doesn't make sense to the world. And so it doesn't make sense to us half the time, or 99% of the time it doesn't make sense to us. But just trying to be faithful and keep walking. And if that means build a theme park, it's like you and I were talking. If that means start a podcast, we don't really understand it. And our family sometimes scratches their head and our friends go, what are you doing? And but also at the same time, there's no other path I'd rather be on, because the opportunities that we get, the blessings that we get, man, you can't manufacture those if you tried. And so it's been awesome. I told Melissa the other day, if Dig World shuts down tomorrow, if we never open again, like if we close the gates tonight and say we're done with it, there are over 400 kids that have had their individual birthday parties at our park over the last year and a half, that for the rest of their life, somewhere along in their story, they'll be telling a friend a story and they'll say, hey, listen, when I was a kid, there was this place where I actually got to operate real construction equipment, and that was my birthday. So we get to, and we've had almost 100,000 guests. We get to be a part of people's memories. That's insane. That's an insane honor that we get to there's not many things that you get to do out there that can ingrain yourself into somebody's memory and life that way. And so it's like I keep saying, it's nothing but an honor to get to do it.
The joy that this is bringing, I think wherever it started, that's one thing. I love seeing the light in you. Like you can tell just how passionate you are in this. I think though, there's the backside of this though, is that this nearly didn't even come to life. And there was
1,000 times. Yeah.
So you got turned down by private equity firms. So I can imagine you going, okay, I have this idea. And I know how much farm equipment and ranching and excavating equipment cost, and they start in the 6 digits. So we're talking about lots of money it's going to take to bring this to life. And that was not an easy journey for you guys, if I'm correct. Talk to me about that. What happened? Like, what was that process like? And then what was it like to have to trust God to just bring this to life?
Yes. Whew. I don't know if I look back on that time with fond memories or PTSD, maybe a mixture of both. But I was telling a guy yesterday, we can talk about it later. I'm in the middle of starting a new venture focused on the entertainment industry. And I said, listen, I am so good at getting people to say no. I'm great at it. Like I can get to a no so fast on an idea. I've just gotten really comfortable with it because Rick, my business partner, and I, when we set out in 2019, like I said, I don't know if it's that we were humbled or God just let us be really naive to protect us. But we told people, hey, listen, we're going to go raise millions of dollars and we're going to open this park in the next 6 months. I look back on that now and I'm not sure. Beauty is Rick and I were not theme park guys. And so now, quote unquote, being a theme park person, even if you had the money, opening a theme park in 6 months is just absurd. But then you got to go get the money, build it, deal with the city, heavens. And so we set on this journey and we're going to go raise a bunch of money. And over the course, before we got the park open, we sat down, we went back and counted 248 no meetings before we got our yeses. And we have about 30 investors. And so 248 times of, hey, this is a dumb idea. Hey, this is a crazy idea. Hey, you're going to kill somebody. Hey, I don't want to be associated with that. Hey, you can't make it work. Hey, you can't, there's no way you can actually build this and open this. Hey, you've never done this before. You think of the excuse. We heard it. I even had a guy one time. He said, "I tell you what, I'll give you the money if you can get a deal done with one of the equipment providers." And what he was banking on is all the equipment providers wouldn't want their brand associated with something like this, right?
Yeah.
And so we finally with the deal we struck with the local Caterpillar dealer here, who's been a great friend of ours and a great investor and family and friend of ours. I got that deal done. I went back to him. I said, "We got the deal done." And he said, "Yeah, I'm still not going to be a part of it though because it's too crazy." And went back on everything. And so like we even had the highs of man, we had the money and then we lost the money and then we had the money and then we lost the money. And I think about that. And I was thinking about it this morning, just God's protection along the way of that. Like I can look back on that time now. And what's funny is our very first no that we got were from 2 guys. They end up being our very last yes, closing out the round. Later on, fast forward 2.5 years.
Huh.
And they came back at the very end and said, "All right, I'll tell you what, I'm in." And so I don't tell them that I keep a little black book, so I know who all said no, or that I remember it, but we do.
You do.
And so,
you're gonna know.
That's right. And you know who you are if you're listening to this. But I look back on that time, and one, I could get choked up thinking about God's provision on that. For example, a week before COVID really became COVID, I sat here in my office and I almost signed a contract to buy land, and you're a realtor, you understand the way this, to buy this piece of property. We were going to close on it. We weren't just going to like go under LOI. We were going to close on it, and where we thought we were going to build a park. Okay. If we had done that, 3 months later, we would have been bankrupt. We would have been in a fire sale of the property. I would have our families would have been in like some serious financial issues. And what happened is we just couldn't get back in front of the seller, and you know how just real estate, like we're going to close on this day, and then it punts a week and whatever. Yeah. And during that punting, COVID happened, and we pulled back and we said, "Hold on, let's figure out what this thing is." And like just little things like that, where we were hammering their lawyers to get us the papers because we wanted to sign it. And I look back, I drive past that property all the time now. I get a pit in my stomach thinking about if we had done that deal. I mean, we would have been out of money so fast and up the creek, and it would just been disastrous. And so God's provision along the way. But I tell people the reason the pitch was really tough is because I get a meeting. I say, "Hey, we're going to build a theme park." Great. Jacob, tell me about your theme park experience. 0. Rick, tell me about your theme park experience. Zero. Okay. All right. Good start. Okay. So have you ever built anything? No.
No.
Okay. Second, great start. Third thing. Okay. Tell me about this concept. All right. Listen, this is what we're going to do. We're going to take a 3-year-old and I'm going to put him on a skid steer and I'm going to let him drive it by himself around the park. Then I'm going to put him on an excavator and let him dig a whole bunch of dirt. At that point, they typically go, why don't you just get out of my office? That sounds crazy. And so we were already the crazy people, right? You've never done this. You don't have any experience in a crazy concept. Then this awesome thing called COVID comes along. And so now you're don't have any experience. You can't build anything. Crazy concept. Now you're going to put a whole bunch of people together. Like this just seems awful. And so it was, I look at Sharon, I remember multiple times Rick and I just sitting here going, you want to just shut it down? God, I don't know what we do. Like, do we just shut it down? And neither one of us could ever get a peace about just shutting it down. I remember going on a walk with my wife toward the tail end of whatever you want to call the end of COVID. And she said, is it time to shut it down? And I said, I can't. I think God's telling me one more week. I said, I tell you what, I said, if I get to this date and we don't have any money, we'll shut it down. I'll send all the money back that we've raised, the bits and pieces. We'll just say, sorry, it couldn't work and no harm, no foul. And frankly, like it would have been easy, right? Like it would have just been easier to do that. Everybody would have understood it. Nobody would have been mad at me. But over the course of those next 5 days, we got 3 big yeses out of the blue. Not out of the blue, God's design, and we were off to the races. And so we announced it in November. We broke ground in November of 21, and we opened the gates in March of 22. It was an epic disaster. An epic.
Also,
we opened the park about 2 days too early. And if you go back and look at our Google reviews, it'll unfortunately tell you that story of that grand opening weekend. It was Rick and I are the only people. I'm about to go to a big theme park conference in Orlando in a couple of weeks. And I tell people I can't wait to be a keynote one day and say, hey, how many of you in this room have opened a theme park and 24 hours later shut it down? And so we opened it. It was a disaster that day. It was just awful, and that was all my doing. And I shut it down that night.
Okay.
And I was on the local news all weekend. They would interview me with kids crying that I've ruined their dreams and blah, 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 blah. And so then we opened up a week later and we were all good to go. But we've been paying the sins of that for a long time because now a lot of people still think we're closed. People are like, I heard y'all closed down. Well, that was literally like 48 hours, but we opened back up. So we've learned a whole host of things. I have been called a lot of things. We have been dealt some funny blows, but here we are.
Wow. Okay. First of all, the 24 hours. Oh my gosh. So did you just like rush it? Did you just try to do it too?
So we rushed it. So we wanted to capitalize on spring break opening. And our technology wasn't quite there yet, meaning we had the technology built for all the machines. We didn't have them installed on all the machines yet. And so we just didn't. And then we were just overrun with people. Like what I should have done is we had machines up and running, just not enough machines up and running. And so I forced it and I said, we're going to do it anyways. And we opened it and we were bombarded with people, which was awesome. But then we like to keep our wait times at the park like 7 minutes. We're dealing with little kids. Yep. That day, the quickest time was 45 minutes to get on a ride. And we are not Disney, passes. Right? Yeah, we are not. And so we are not playing that game. But it was bad. We shut it down that night because we were going to be open those 4 days: Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday of spring break. Mm-hmm. And we can't do this our staff can't do this for the next 3 days. Our reputation can't do this for the next 3 days. Let's just make people mad right now to fix this problem for the future. But my wife will tell you that night when I came home, she said, you laid in bed and she said, I remember looking at you thinking, I lost you. Like it was such a blow mentally and spiritually. And just like, I was confused and I was mad. And she was like, I just remember looking at you that I lost you. And I didn't think you were ever going to reignite about anything. I didn't think you were going to be excited about anything. It was bad. I cried a lot that day. And so you look at the grand scheme of things, right? And I think this is what Pierce has taught me, to circle back to him. Yeah, man, it was super tough. But I think it was tough because so many people were just excited for us. And I felt like a failure in that moment. But as much as the tears were there and I was bummed, I was mad at myself and frustrated, man, coming home and seeing that little guy, perspective, right? Like if I make some people mad in the interim, so be it, because I made a mistake. We own our mistakes, we move on. But you know what? I've got a little boy. That's right. I got a little boy down here who, he teaches us a lot about life, and he doesn't care. He doesn't care if I open a theme park or close it. And so it was a journey. It was a journey.
That's fascinating. You know what? I think that somebody needed to hear, which I did not anticipate us talking about that because I didn't know about that it was like a mess the first 24 hours.
Oh yeah.
Okay, but how often in life do we go into it and we think, okay, we're going to be super successful and this is all going to go according to plan and I'm doing exactly what I think God is leading me to do and I've seen his provision, and then you open it and you go, well, this is a hot
Yep.
mess. We'll just leave it
Yep.
at that. Um,
That's right.
but that's where I think he gets the glory, is because I had to humble myself. I had to realize like I had made a mistake here. You had to stop, regroup. And you know what? Some Google reviews here in 10 years, whenever there's dig worlds all over the
Right.
United States, I hope. And you persevered. You humbled yourself and said, okay, we got to make some adjustments. We got to figure this out. And then you did, and you moved forward. And that's
Yeah.
beautiful. Like, that's where it's at, dude. That's part of this faith journey.
That's right. It's
Part
interesting. In that context, I was listening this morning to a Bible study done by Louis Giglio, and he was walking through the book of Acts. And he talks about the end of it. Here, Paul is the pinnacle of Paul's life was finally getting to Rome, right? And he was going to take the gospel to Rome. And he gets on this boat, and they say, "Hey, we're going to Rome." And he's going, "That's it.
Yes.
I'm here. I'm home free. I'm home free." And then a shipwreck happens, and he crashes in Malta, and he's stuck on this island. Then he gets bit by a snake. Then he like brings all these other prisoners, and brings out a revival. Then you get to go to Rome. But then when you get there, you're actually in prison again. And so it's one of these like just detours, right? His whole message was about detours and about how just because you're on a detour doesn't mean you're not going to get to where God's got you set out to be. I think that's life, right? Like we look up and we go, wait, hold on. You told me to open Dig World. Persevere, dadgummit. We've survived COVID. We survived fundraising. We survived my family asking me to stop. Like we survived all these things, dadgummit. And this is the grand opening day. Like this was supposed to be the day that I look back on the rest of my life with fond memories. And it's a day I don't like to look at pictures of at this point. Like it was anything but. And so then now you fast forward a year and a half. And without going through that, without the humbling, without the retrusting the Lord, right? Because then God's going, "Hey, listen, you remember me? I'm still here. I'm still in charge. I still have a plan." And now it's a weird, unique part of our story. And I get to sit there and like I said, if I ever get to be a keynote one day, how many people in this world will ever get to say that, right? And I can meet you there. I can talk about failures. I can talk about failures on a very public platform. I can talk about that. And it's not, again, a kid with disabilities. It's not the story I wanted, or it's not the group frankly, I love the special needs community. I didn't want to be in that community, right? Like I wanted to love that community from the outside, right? Yeah. I didn't want to be in this leadership failure on a public platform community. Let's just make a state if I make a mistake in the background, so be it. But dadgummit, you want to be on the news, you want to be interviewed, you want to be written about, so be it. And I get to be in that community now and get to love on people and say, hey, good news is Jesus is still Jesus, and it is what it is.
That's right. Thank you for being vulnerable there. I think people have the tendency to hide whenever they make mistakes. Adam and Eve from the garden, shame. We hit ourselves. Thank you for just saying, hey, listen, this is what happened. This was my first day. If you ever give that keynote, let me know. I want to listen to it.
Yes.
It'll be great.
Yes.
I really actually just want to be a fly on the wall watching everybody else as you tell the story, because I'm like, just to watch their reaction, because anybody else, if you didn't own it, would have gotten fired. I mean, like you would have fired yourself if you hadn't been the founder.
Oh yeah. If I wasn't like on like tied to like banknotes, I'm pretty sure I would just got my car and just disappeared, right? Like it would just been like, it'd just been much easier just to disappear and just leave it alone.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love God's sense of humor. He's like, hey, watch this.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Well, tell me where, first, before we wrap up, if people want to go find Dig World, if they're in the Houston area, where can they find that?
Yeah, for sure. On our website, digworldtx.com, you can get your tickets there. You follow us on Instagram, same handle, or you can just come to the park. We're out in Katy, Texas. We're right adjacent to Katy Mills Mall, which is next door to Bass Pro Shop. We're near Typhoon, Texas, big water park here in Houston. So if you're just in the general Katy area, you can do a walk up, and we'd love to serve you and love to host you.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. I think we're probably too big to get to play on these things, but I want to
No,
play.
no, we
No?
celebrated an 82-year-old birthday party at the park a couple of months ago.
Shut the front door. So I
It
could have
was
my
it was
birthday
her
there?
absolutely. It was her life dream to operate an excavator, and so her adult kids called us and they were like, "Hey," and listen, we went all out. We got her an adult hard hat. We got a different vest. We got yes, our retail shop is obviously geared towards kids, but we went and got like one of our like I've got the Dig World hard hat right here. We gave her one of
Yeah.
those, and just we just wanted to make a fun memory for her. So no, nobody is ever too old to have fun at our park.
Okay, then I'm definitely coming next time I'm in Houston.
Yes,
Because
yes.
my family would love that. Yeah, my family would love that. I don't care what age you are. Like getting to like do like those, like getting to
Yes.
like and like move the dirt, and I would be terrible at it because I am the least coordinated human. I
Hey,
think.
that's all right.
Oh, that's okay. I
It's
would
fun.
love to do it. And
Just
and
don't
I
sit
mean,
next to a 3-year-old because they typically put the adults to shame because they're used to the game and all that kind of stuff. So just don't
good to
sit
know.
next to a 3-year-old. Other than that,
All
you'll
right.
be good to go.
That's a deal. You're a bit. By the way, you're a busy human. You also have a podcast. You're a fellow podcaster. You have a podcast called Chasing What Matters, and I started listening to it whenever a friend of ours connected us a couple of months ago, and I have loved listening to you and your dad talk.
Oh, thank you.
Tell the listeners where they can find you, if you want to talk about that for a second, and then where they could find you.
Yeah, so I'm super blessed. My dad and I have a great relationship. He's one of my best friends. He retired in the middle of COVID. He like I said, he ran hospital systems, and he said, "Listen, I've rebuilt many hospital systems, and I'm not sure I want to do it one more time. I'd rather go hang out with kids and grandkids and enjoy what the Lord's given me." And so he retired, and didn't he was like, I'm just gonna have fun. And so I gave him 2 weeks off before I called him, and I said, "Listen, you're at home now." He was a radio broadcaster, a news anchor before he got into healthcare. And so he loves he's great interviewing. He loves the technology behind it.
He has the voice.
Great
Like
voice.
when I listen, oh
Great
yeah,
voice.
when I listened to him, I was like,
Yes.
oh, you were totally in radio. Totally.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Lead news anchor, the whole
Oh yeah.
deal. And so I said, look, you've got a crazy, awesome network of people you've got to know your whole life. I've had the opportunity to know a few people. We don't get to go hunting as much. We don't get to go golfing as much because you're in Waco. I'm here. These things called kids get in the way of my hunting trips and stuff like that. But I said, listen, let's do a podcast. Let's just interview our network. Let's just email them. Say, hey, listen, let's talk about leadership and faith and the intersect of that. And we'll sit on Zoom, be an hour. I mean, he does all the editing, so it's more for him than it is for me. But if nothing else, that's right. If nothing else, it'll be a fun hobby. And I was a little brash. I said, listen, and frankly, selfishly speaking, when you're dead and gone, I'll have these recordings. It'll be a fun thing to pass down, look back on, and think about. And so we started in August of 2020. And I think on Tuesday, we're about to record like our 125th or 100 and some odd episode. And it's just crazy, like you just keep getting introduced to people and people join the show. And we don't get paid. We have no agenda to it. It's more, we have no rhyme or reason, but we just go, man, that's a cool story. And the people that God's put in our way, like unbelievable that people have said yes to be on our show and the people that we get to work with. What's funny from the show, I look now, I'm working with like 2 or 3 of those individuals from the show. We have to know each other and just develop a great relationship. And so, yeah, it's called Chasing What Matters. My dad used to sign, or still does. He signed all his emails called with Chase What Matters, and he would sign it Glenn. And so we took that and started a podcast. And so we've got one you can find on all the platforms, but Chasing What Matters.
Okay, you can find it. I figured you could find it anywhere. I listened to it on Apple, but my goodness, Jacob Robinson, even though you're an Aggie, man, you are a really cool dude. I mean,
well, thank you.
Besides my childhood best friend, who is also an Aggie, you rank right up there with some of the top Aggies I know, man. You're
thank
the
you.
real deal. Thank you for coming on today and sharing your heart. I love it. I've loved this. You're welcome back on this podcast anytime, my friend. Anytime.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here, and thank you for what you're doing. It takes time and effort. I know that firsthand, and so thank you for doing that and staying faithful to what the Lord's asked you to do. So thank you for doing that.
Well, thank you. Listeners, we'll link everything in the show notes wherever you're listening to this. And if you want to connect with Dig World on social media, we'll get that link for you too. It's Dig World TX, but that'll also be in the show notes for you who are driving and don't want to try to remember that. You can just go look in the show notes. So Thank you guys so much for being here this week. I have a sneaky feeling this was just as encouraging to you guys as it was to me. So thanks for being here, and good Lord willing, I will see y'all next week.